Hey, what's up? My name is Dakota. I'm with Rocky Mountain Slackline, and this is Slack Sessions. This episode is on rigging a slackline in your backyard without trees. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about risers, and right here, this is what you might hear called an A-frame. Some other styles are the standard X right here. This is also another trick line riser that we made. This one's a bit too bulky, too beefy, it's too heavy. We wanted something a little bit more practical. This works great. The way you use these is you insert rope through these half-inch holes up here, and then tire stopper knot on each side to prevent the X from sliding out. I've got the same holes down at the bottom. Voila, get your slackline up off the ground. These are other styles of risers. They all work, but this is kind of what I've been using recently. I want to kind of talk a little bit about the design on these things. These legs really help as far as trying to get the line set up. A lot of times when you're dealing with risers, especially by yourself, they're falling over. So these legs aren't actually really holding any stability in the line once it's under tension, because what's actually holding the stability is the tension itself pushing downwards on the riser. These legs though really help as far as keeping them upright where you're wanting them to be while you're setting up the line. We've got some climb spec tubular webbing today that we're going to set up. These are nice because the legs fold up. I've got different levels. This is the highest level, average, and then we go down to here. But I do want to talk about why I wouldn't anchor it off this one, or at least rise it up over this little ledge. And it's because this is just a stability reinforcement block in the riser. This actually wouldn't be that strong, just because if the line was coming over this point right here, you're working off just the integrity of the screws that are holding this block in, pressing downwards. We want to be using the entire structure strength here. So that way, a better way to get that strength is using something a little bit more built for something like that. This is a half-inch bolt threaded through PVC, which makes a nice soft cover for the bolt to prevent any abrasions. That way, you're pushing more on the integrity of the entire riser itself. I want to talk next about what we're actually anchoring off of. This is my backyard. This is about a 65-foot line. I'm using deadman anchors with chain. So essentially what I had done here is I dug a hole under here in my garden about 5 feet back. The hole is about 4 feet wide and about 4 feet deep, and then connected a chain around the log. Bolted it together so that I'd only have one strand coming out of the ground. You pack that thing in, and then it comes out at a nice slope, and then this is it coming out later. The reason I use chain is because it's, it can resist a lot of the elements outside pretty well over a lot of, polyester or nylon materials, stuff like that. What I really like about using chain is that it offers you multiple connection points. That is super key, especially when you start dealing with risers and, needing to adjust stuff, get it right. But one thing to consider when you're picking out your chain at your hardware store, you always want to bring with you a piece of steel to make sure that what you intend to be using is going to fit through the chain. That's super important. So I got some steel carabiners here. I want to make sure that the beaner itself can fit through the chain link. Alright? Now, as far as how to position your riser, you never want your riser to be too close to your anchor, because then you get this awkward, steep angle going on, which is then pulling more upwards on your dead man anchor. the way to get the most integrity out of your deadman anchors is pulling at that nice long angle. That way you're pulling against the earth rather than upwards on just 4 feet of dirt you stacked on top. So you always want to have your risers out a little bit. What I found to be most effective when using any A-frame is tying off the top of it. So, here I just took some static rope, tied a figure 8 up on top to this top block. In this riser, I put in 2 eyes and then have the connection point back here. And what this helps with is so that the riser won't fall forward on you, either when you're rigging or when you're walking. We want it to be at that nice upright angle. That's what we're looking for. So this, shouldn't see a ton of load, but it is going to prevent the riser from falling forward and keep it into position where we're using the entire strength of the riser. So now I kind of want to show you what the finished product looks like after you've gotten everything set up. So what I did here is, this is what I call my master point. This is actually what the entire slackline is being rigged off right now, steel carabiner. And then I hooked it up to a span set, and it was actually pretty convenient because the length of span set I chose, this is a 6-footer straight to a rigging plate, comes out right in front of my riser above this little bolt setup I've got right here. So it works out perfect lengthwise. The angle of the purple span set in accordance to this isn't too bad. It's decent, especially for a backyard line like this. It works out well. And the perks in putting the rigging plate up here is you've got a lot of room to work with here. So I'm able to hook up my web locks, my pulleys, everything's right here, nice and convenient for you. Now, say you're rigging up with like a primitive type system or even a ratchet. You don't necessarily need to extend this master point up to here. You can hook up your ratchet directly to one of these chain links, or you can, in a primitive type setup, you could, if you don't have span sets, you haven't invested in them yet, you could use, webbing, slings, you could use static rope, if you are wanting to extend it up to here to make it a little bit better to work with. But you can most definitely hook up your ratchet or tensioning system back here. You just have a little bit less room to work with. So this is nice, gives you a lot of room to work with, especially if I'm bringing my pulleys way out to here. I've got just a nice straight shot to work with here. So there's my backyard setup. RockyMountainSlackline.com.